A shy girl visits a gynecologist. Shockingly, her doctor is a young millionaire. Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's story. A shy girl visits a gynecologist, and shockingly, her doctor is a young millionaire. Let's go back to our main character. Lila was a young woman who had always kept to herself. She wasn't one to socialize much, especially in unfamiliar settings. The thought of meeting a new doctor made her stomach churn, but today, she had no choice. She had to get the checkup she'd been putting off for far too long. She took a deep breath as she walked into the clinic, clutching her purse tightly, her fingers shaking ever so slightly. The receptionist greeted her with a warm smile, but Lila could only manage a nervous nod in return. As she sat down in the waiting area, the soft hum of the fluorescent lights above her seemed to mirror the anxious beating of her heart. The nurse called her name, and Lila stood up, trying her best to steady her nerves. She followed the nurse down the hallway, trying to avoid making eye contact with anyone. As the nurse led her into the exam room, Lila's heart raced even faster. She couldn't help but feel a little out of place. She was just a shy girl, unsure of herself, and here she was, about to face something so personal. The door opened, and in walked Dr. Adrian, a man who was nothing like she had imagined. He was young, probably in his early 30s, tall, with strikingly good looks that made him seem more like a movie star than a doctor. He was dressed in a crisp white coat, but there was something about him that exuded a calm, collected confidence. Lila was taken aback, unsure of what to say. She had expected someone older, someone more like the doctors she had seen in the past. But this man, Dr. Hale, was a far cry from what she'd imagined. He looked up from his chart and smiled at her, his eyes kind and reassuring. "Hi, Lila. I'm Dr. Hale. How are you feeling today?" His voice was soft, warm, and easy to listen to. Lila's nerves momentarily eased, but the thought of being here, exposed, made her heart race once again. "I'm okay," she managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Hale gave her an understanding nod as he gestured for her to sit on the examination table. He went over her medical history with ease, making sure to ask all the right questions. Lila couldn't help but notice how professional he was. There was no hint of discomfort in his voice, no awkwardness, and it made her feel just a little bit more at ease. As the exam began, Lila tried to focus on the task at hand. She told herself to breathe, to remain calm. But as Dr. Hale continued, she couldn't help but feel an odd sense of warmth in the room. She tried to ignore the way his presence made her heart flutter, but it was hard not to. He was so kind, so gentle, so different from what she was used to. After the exam, Dr. Hale sat down beside her and went over the results, explaining everything in detail. He even made sure to answer her questions, no matter how small they seemed. It was during this moment that Lila noticed something strange, a subtle hint of wealth that surrounded him. The way he spoke, the expensive watch on his wrist, the impeccable attention to detail in his every movement. She shook it off as nothing more than her imagination. After all, why would someone like him be here, in a small, quiet clinic, doing something so personal? But as they wrapped up the appointment, Lila felt a sense of relief wash over her. She had done it. She had faced her fears and come out on the other side. As she stood up to leave, Dr. Hale handed her his card. "If you ever need anything, don't hesitate to call. I'm here to help," he said with a reassuring smile. Lila nodded, feeling a little more at ease now, but still unsure of what to make of the encounter. She took the card, slipping it into her purse before walking out of the room. Little did she know, this was just the beginning of a story that would change her life in ways she could never have imagined. The next few days passed quickly for Lila. She found herself thinking about Dr. Hale more often than she cared to admit. Every time she closed her eyes, she remembered the warmth in his voice, the calm, reassuring smile he had given her, and the gentle way he had conducted the entire examination. She couldn't shake the feeling that there was something different about him, something that didn't quite add up. But of course, she didn't have the luxury of dwelling on it. Life was already hard enough. She had barely made rent that month, and the job search had yielded no results. But despite all of that, there was a small flicker of hope inside her that had been ignited by her encounter with Dr. Hale. A hope she couldn't fully explain. A hope that maybe, just maybe, things could get better. A week passed before she found herself back at the clinic, needing another follow-up appointment. She had put it off for as long as she could, but now the time had come. The second she walked into the waiting room, her stomach flipped. The smell of antiseptic filled the air, and the sterile white walls only added to her discomfort. She felt out of place, like she didn't belong in a place like this. The receptionist smiled at her again, and she tried her best to smile back, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. She had made up her mind to get this over with quickly and leave. She didn't want to think about the doctor, but it was hard not to. A part of her wanted to see him again, to understand why she kept thinking about him. A part of her was scared of what that might mean. Her thoughts were interrupted when a nurse called her name. She stood up and followed the nurse down the hallway once again, trying not to look too nervous. As they entered the examination room, the same familiar feeling washed over her. She sat down on the examination table, trying to calm her racing heart. She couldn't help but feel like something was about to change, something she wasn't quite ready for. The door opened, and there he was. Dr. Adrian Hale. Lila's breath caught in her throat. He was even more handsome than she remembered. His dark hair was perfectly styled, and his crisp white coat seemed to make him stand a little taller. But it wasn't just his appearance that caught her attention. It was the way he looked at her, with that same calm, reassuring gaze. "Hello, Lila," he said softly, his voice like honey. "How are you feeling today?" For a second, Lila forgot how to speak. She had rehearsed her answers over and over in her head, but now, in front of him, her mind had gone blank. I'm okay," she finally managed to say, her voice quiet but steady. Dr. Hale smiled, sensing her discomfort. He stepped closer and placed the medical chart down, his eyes never leaving hers. "I know this might be a bit uncomfortable," he said gently, "but I want you to know that you're in good hands. I'm here to help." His words, so simple, yet so sincere, made Lila's heart flutter. She nodded, feeling a little more at ease. As the appointment went on, Lila found herself relaxing, trusting him more with each passing moment. He wasn't just a doctor to her anymore, he was someone who genuinely cared. He explained everything in detail, making sure she understood the process and answered every question she had. But what struck her most was the way he listened. He didn't rush her or make her feel insignificant. He listened to everything she had to say, and in that moment, Lila realized that no one had ever really listened to her before. Not like this. As the appointment came to an end, Lila felt a sense of relief wash over her. She had been so nervous, but now, she felt lighter. As Dr. Hale stood to leave, he handed her his business card again. "If you ever need anything, don't hesitate to reach out," he said. "I'm always here to help." Lila took the card, feeling the weight of it in her hand. She looked up at him, meeting his gaze for the first time without feeling nervous. "Thank you," she said softly. He smiled at her, and for a moment, Lila felt as though the world around them had disappeared. It was just the two of them, standing in that small, sterile room. "You're welcome," he replied, his voice warm. And then he left. Lila stood there for a moment, staring at the door, unsure of what to feel. She wasn't sure what it was about Dr. Hale that had her so entranced, but there was something. Something that made her want to see him again, to understand him. She knew it was complicated, that he was her doctor and she was just a patient. But deep down, she couldn't deny the connection she felt. She put the business card in her purse and made her way out of the clinic, but she couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of something much bigger. Something that would change her life in ways she couldn't even imagine. It had been 2 weeks since Lila's last visit to the clinic, and every day, she found herself thinking about Dr. Hale more than she cared to admit. She knew it was crazy. After all, he was her doctor, and she was just a shy, ordinary girl trying to get through life. But there was something about him, something about the way he had treated her, that kept lingering in her thoughts. It wasn't just the way he looked, though, of course, he was handsome, but the way he made her feel. He was kind, professional, and so incredibly present. No one had ever made her feel seen like that before. She had tried to brush it off, telling herself it was just a fleeting crush, but deep down, she knew it wasn't that simple. Every time she walked past the clinic, she couldn't help but glance up at the building, wondering if she would run into him again. It wasn't that she needed another appointment, it was just the pull she felt toward him that she couldn't shake. She tried to focus on other things, the mounting bills, her job search, the endless tasks that filled her days. But no matter how hard she tried to distract herself, Dr. Hale's presence lingered like a quiet hum in the background of her life. One evening, as she was walking home from the grocery store, her phone buzzed. She pulled it out, expecting to see another rejection email or a notification from a job listing, but instead, there was a message from an unknown number. The text simply read, "Lila, this is Dr. Hale. I know this might seem strange, but I've been thinking about you. I hope you're doing well. Would you like to grab a coffee sometime? No pressure, just a casual meet-up. Let me know. Adrian." Lila's heart skipped a beat. She stared at the message for what felt like an eternity, unsure of how to respond. Was this real? Was he really asking her out? Was it professional to meet outside of the clinic? She had so many questions, but the only one that kept coming back was, why her? Why now? She thought about it for a while, pacing in her small apartment, the weight of the decision pressing down on her. She knew that if she said yes, it would change everything. But the curiosity inside her was too strong to ignore. She had to know more about him, about what was behind the professionalism, the warmth, the kindness that had caught her off guard. After what felt like hours of indecision, she finally typed out a simple reply, "I would love to, thank you for asking. When works for you?" She hit send before she could second-guess herself. A few minutes later, he replied, "How about tomorrow morning, around 10? There's a coffee shop near the clinic I like. I'll be there." Her heart raced. Tomorrow. It was really happening. She couldn't help but smile to herself, her nerves giving way to excitement. The next morning, Lila woke up early, her mind racing as she got ready. She stood in front of her mirror, unsure of what to wear. She wasn't trying to impress him, but she also didn't want to look like she didn't care. She finally settled on a simple but elegant blouse and a pair of jeans. Nothing too fancy, but enough to feel confident. As she walked to the coffee shop, her thoughts were all over the place. She had no idea what to expect, but she was nervous, excited, and a little bit scared. What would he be like outside the clinic? Would he still seem so kind and professional, or would he be different? When she arrived, she spotted him almost immediately. He was sitting at a small table by the window, his laptop open in front of him. He looked up as she approached, and his face lit up with a smile. "Lila, hey. I'm so glad you came." He stood up to greet her, his hand outstretched. She shook his hand, her palms suddenly sweating. "Thanks for inviting me," she said, her voice quieter than usual. He gestured for her to sit down, and they both settled into their chairs. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence wasn't uncomfortable, though. It felt natural, like they were both just trying to figure out where to begin. "So," he said finally, breaking the silence, "how have you been? I've been thinking about our last appointment, and I hope you're feeling okay." Lila smiled, surprised by how genuine his concern seemed. "I'm doing well, thank you. It's been a bit busy, but I'm managing." She paused, not sure what to say next. "How about you?" she asked, finally meeting his eyes. "How's work?" He shrugged. Busy, as usual. But I've been trying to make time for myself, too. It's important to find balance, you know. She nodded, understanding what he meant. As they chatted about work, life, and everything in between, Lila couldn't help but notice how easy it was to talk to him. There was no pressure, no awkwardness. He listened, really listened, and made her feel like her thoughts mattered. She had never experienced anything like this before, and it was both comforting and exhilarating. The conversation flowed naturally, and before she knew it, an hour had passed. They talked about everything, from his favorite books to her hopes and dreams. It was unlike any date she had ever been on, but in the best possible way. When it was time to leave, Dr. Hale stood up, offering to walk her out. "I'm really glad we did this," he said, his smile warm and genuine. "Me too," Lila replied, feeling a flutter in her chest. "Thanks for asking me." He paused for a moment, looking at her with a thoughtful expression. "Maybe we can do it again sometime," he said, almost as if he were unsure of how she would respond. Lila smiled, her nerves fading away. "I'd like that." And with that, they said goodbye, both feeling like something had shifted between them. Lila wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like maybe, just maybe, things were about to change. The next few days felt like a blur for Lila. After her coffee date with Dr. Hale, she found herself replaying every moment over and over in her head. The conversation had flowed effortlessly, and for the first time in a long time, she felt truly seen. She couldn't believe how comfortable she felt around him, how at ease he made her, despite her usual shyness. It was like he understood her in ways no one else had. Lila had spent the entire day after the coffee meeting with a smile on her face, but as the days went by, a sense of uncertainty began to creep in. What did it mean that he wanted to meet her again? Was this just a casual thing for him, or was there something more? She couldn't help but wonder if she was reading too much into it. After all, he was a doctor, and she was just a girl trying to make her way through life. But no matter how hard she tried to push those thoughts away, they kept coming back, and she couldn't ignore the flutter in her chest every time her phone buzzed. One evening, as she sat in her small apartment, staring at her phone, a message from Dr. Hale popped up on her screen. "Hey Lila, I've been thinking about you. Would you like to meet again this weekend? Maybe grab dinner or something? Let me know if you're free." Her heart skipped a beat. She had been hoping for this, but now that it was happening, she wasn't sure how to respond. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves, and finally typed back, "I'd love to. Saturday works for me." He replied almost immediately, "Great. I'll make a reservation for us. I'm looking forward to it." The words left her smiling, but also a little anxious. What was she getting herself into? Was this just a casual dinner, or was it something more? She couldn't shake the feeling that her life was about to change, and she wasn't sure if she was ready for it. Saturday evening arrived faster than she expected, and Lila found herself standing in front of her mirror, nervously adjusting her outfit. She didn't want to overdo it, but she also wanted to look nice. She settled on a simple black dress that she knew made her feel confident and comfortable. As she stepped out of her apartment, her heart raced with anticipation. The restaurant wasn't far from her place, but it felt like the longest walk of her life. She arrived a few minutes early and waited outside, trying to calm her nerves. As the minutes ticked by, she started to wonder if she had made a mistake, if maybe she had misunderstood the whole situation. But just as she was about to doubt herself, she saw him. Dr. Hale stepped out of the restaurant, looking just as put together as always, in a sleek black suit that perfectly complemented his tall frame. His eyes scanned the street before landing on her, and his face lit up with a smile that made her stomach flip. "Lila," he said, his voice warm and inviting. "You look beautiful." She smiled, a little flustered, but managed to say, "Thank you. You look great too." He chuckled softly, a sound that made her feel even more at ease. "Shall we?" he asked, gesturing toward the door. As they walked inside, Lila felt the familiar butterflies in her stomach. It was different this time, though. There was no awkwardness, no tension. It felt like they were picking up right where they had left off. They were seated at a cozy table near the window, and as they settled in, Dr. Hale looked at her with those warm, expressive eyes. "I'm really glad you agreed to come tonight," he said, his tone sincere. "I've been wanting to get to know you better." Lila's heart fluttered at his words. She had been wondering if he felt the same way, and hearing him say it aloud made everything feel a little more real. "I'm glad too," she said softly. "I've enjoyed getting to know you already." The evening went by in a blur of laughter, stories, and meaningful conversation. They shared details about their lives, their hopes, and their dreams. Lila found herself opening up to him in a way she never had with anyone else. He listened, genuinely interested, and his questions weren't just polite, they were heartfelt. As the night drew to a close, they stood up to leave, and Dr. Hale placed his hand gently on her back as they walked toward the exit. "I had a great time tonight," he said, his voice low and sincere. "Me too," Lila replied, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "Thank you for a wonderful evening." He smiled at her, his eyes lingering on hers for a moment longer than usual. "I'm glad we did this. I've really enjoyed spending time with you, Lila." Her heart skipped a beat at his words. "I have too," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. As they stepped outside into the cool night air, Dr. Hale turned to her and smiled. "Would you like to do this again sometime?" he asked, his voice hopeful. Lila couldn't help but smile back. "I'd like that very much." And with that, they said their goodbyes, both feeling the unspoken promise of something more. Lila walked home that night with a smile on her face and hope in her heart, knowing that whatever happened next, this was just the beginning. The days that followed Lila's dinner with Dr. Hale were filled with anticipation and a growing sense of excitement. Every time she thought about him, her heart skipped a beat. She couldn't believe how much she enjoyed their time together. The conversation had been easy and natural, and for the first time in a long while, she felt like someone truly cared about what she had to say. She had always been shy, always kept to herself, but with Dr. Hale, everything felt different. It wasn't just the chemistry between them, it was the way he made her feel safe, comfortable, and important. But even with all of this, there was a part of Lila that felt uncertain. She still wasn't sure if she was reading too much into it. After all, Dr. Hale was her doctor, and she was just a woman trying to navigate her life. But the way he treated her, his kindness, his attention, was unlike anything she had ever experienced. It made her feel like maybe, just maybe, there was something more between them. It was on one particularly quiet evening, when Lila was just finishing up dinner, that her phone buzzed. She looked down, surprised to see a text from Dr. Hale. "Hey, Lila. I was thinking about you today. I hope you're doing well. Would you like to meet up again soon? I'd love to see you." Her heart fluttered as she read the words. She had been hoping for this, but now that it was happening, she wasn't sure what to say. Was this just a casual message, or did it mean something more? She hesitated for a moment, then quickly typed back, "I'd love to, Dr. Hale. When works for you?" A few moments later, he replied, "How about Friday evening? I know a great little place I'd like to take you to. Let me know if that works for you." Lila smiled to herself, her excitement growing. "Friday sounds perfect," she typed, her fingers trembling slightly. "I'll see you then." She couldn't believe it, he had actually asked her out again. The thought of seeing him again made her nervous, but in the best way possible. She spent the next few days thinking about what to wear, how to act, what to say. She knew it was still early, but she couldn't help but wonder if this could turn into something more. Friday evening arrived, and Lila stood in front of her mirror, trying to decide what to wear. She wanted to look nice, but not too fancy. She didn't want to seem like she was trying too hard. She settled on a simple, elegant dress that she felt confident in, paired with a light cardigan. It was comfortable, but still chic. When she arrived at the restaurant, she was a little early. She stood outside for a moment, taking a deep breath to calm her nerves. She had no idea what to expect, but she couldn't help but feel like this was going to be another special night. As she waited, she couldn't help but smile to herself, thinking about how different everything felt now. Just a few weeks ago, she would never have imagined that she'd be meeting Dr. Hale for dinner. Yet here she was, her heart full of hope and anticipation. A few minutes later, she saw him approaching. Dr. Hale looked even more handsome than she remembered, dressed in a smart black jacket and dark jeans. He smiled when he saw her, and his expression softened. "Lila, you look stunning," he said, his voice sincere. "Thank you," she replied, feeling her cheeks flush. "You look great too." He offered his arm, and they walked into the restaurant together. The ambience inside was cozy and intimate, with soft lighting and gentle music playing in the background. They were seated at a quiet corner table, and as they looked over the menu, Lila couldn't help but feel a sense of ease. It was like they had known each other for years. The conversation flowed effortlessly, just like it had during their coffee date. They talked about their families, their favorite books, and the things they were passionate about. Dr. Hale shared a few stories about his childhood, and Lila laughed at how easy it was to talk to him. She felt comfortable, even though her nerves were still there, just underneath the surface. The food arrived, and they continued their conversation, exchanging stories and jokes. As the evening wore on, Lila found herself enjoying his company more and more. There was a chemistry between them, an undeniable connection, and for the first time in a long while, she felt like she wasn't alone. She was sharing this moment with someone who truly cared about her. When dinner came to a close, Dr. Hale stood up and offered his hand to Lila. "Thank you for such a wonderful evening," he said, his voice filled with warmth. "It was my pleasure," she replied, standing up and taking his hand. "I'm really glad we did this." As they walked outside, the cool evening air brushed against Lila's skin, and she shivered slightly. Dr. Hale noticed and immediately took off his jacket, draping it over her shoulders. "Here, you'll be warmer in this," he said with a smile. Lila looked up at him, feeling her heart swell. She had never felt so cared for. "Thank you," she whispered. He smiled back, his eyes softening. "I'm happy to see you happy," he said quietly. Lila felt a warmth spread through her chest. It was moments like this that made her realize how special Dr. Hale really was. She wasn't sure where this was all going, but for the first time in a long while, she felt like she was exactly where she needed to be. The weeks that followed felt like a whirlwind for Lila. She and Dr. Hale had gone on a few more dates, and with each passing one, their connection grew deeper. Lila found herself looking forward to their time together more than anything else in her life. They shared stories about their childhoods, their dreams, and even their fears. For Lila, it was a feeling she had never experienced before. She had always kept a part of herself closed off, unsure of how to trust others, but with Dr. Hale, everything seemed different. He was patient, kind, and always made her feel safe. She never thought she would be in a relationship like this, but it felt like she was finally letting someone in. As the days passed, Lila started to feel something she hadn't felt in a long time, hope. She began to think about a future that didn't feel so uncertain. But with this newfound hope also came fear. She had never imagined herself with someone like Dr. Hale. He was successful, confident, and everything she had always believed she couldn't have. She felt like she didn't quite belong in his world. It wasn't that he made her feel that way, but she couldn't help but feel small compared to the life he led. One evening, as they sat in a cozy cafe, Dr. Hale looked at her with a serious expression. "Lila," he said softly, "I've been thinking about us a lot lately." Her heart skipped a beat, and she immediately wondered if he was going to say something she wasn't ready to hear. "I want to be honest with you," he continued, his voice calm but full of sincerity. "I've been falling for you, and I'm not sure where this is going, but I want to find out." Lila's breath caught in her throat. She hadn't expected him to say that. She had been feeling the same way, but hearing him say it out loud made everything feel more real. I feel the same," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "But I'm scared. Scared that I don't belong in your world, that I'm not good enough for someone like you. Dr. Hale reached across the table, gently taking her hand in his. Lila, he said, his voice full of warmth, you are more than enough. You don't have to be like anyone else, and you definitely don't have to change to fit into my world. I love who you are. And I want to be with you, no matter what. The sincerity in his words made her heart swell. She had never felt so seen, so appreciated. For the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could have the love she had always dreamed of. That night, as she lay in bed, Lila couldn't stop thinking about Dr. Hale's words. She replayed the conversation in her mind, feeling a mix of relief and excitement. She knew there were still obstacles to face, but for the first time, she felt like she was ready to take them on. It was a new chapter in her life, one that felt both terrifying and exhilarating. The next few days felt like a dream. They continued to spend time together, getting to know each other even more deeply. Dr. Hale was still the same caring, attentive man, and Lila found herself falling more and more in love with him. But just as she started to feel completely at ease, something unexpected happened. One afternoon, as Lila was getting ready for a date with Dr. Hale, she received a call from her best friend, Jenny. Lila, you need to come over right now, Jenny said, her voice sounding urgent. What's going on? Lila asked, her heart pounding. I don't want to worry you, but something's happened with Dr. Hale. You need to hear this. Lila's stomach sank. She immediately grabbed her coat and rushed to Jenny's apartment, her mind racing with fear. What could have happened? Why would Jenny need to talk about Dr. Hale? As she entered Jenny's apartment, she found her friend sitting on the couch, her face pale and serious. What's going on? Lila asked again, her voice trembling. Jenny took a deep breath before speaking. I just found out something about Dr. Hale, something I think you should know. Lila's heart raced. What do you mean? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. I heard from someone at the hospital, Jenny continued, that Dr. Hale is not just a doctor. He's the CEO of a multi-million-dollar medical group. He's been hiding his identity from you. Lila felt her breath catch in her throat. What? He's the CEO? Why didn't he tell me? Her mind was spinning. She couldn't process what Jenny was saying. I don't know, Jenny said, her voice soft. But I thought you should hear it from me before you find out another way. Lila sat down, her hands shaking. The news hit her like a ton of bricks. She had suspected that Dr. Hale might have a high position, but she never imagined he was hiding something so big. Why would he keep that from her? Was he ashamed of her, or was there something else going on? As the shock began to wear off, Lila realized she had to confront him. She couldn't let this uncertainty hang over their relationship. She needed to hear the truth from him, no matter what. The next few days were a whirlwind of emotions for Lila. She couldn't stop thinking about the shocking information Jenny had shared with her. Dr. Hale was not just a doctor, he was the CEO of a multi-million-dollar medical group. She felt betrayed, confused, and unsure of what to do. The man she had been falling for, the man who had made her feel seen and loved, had kept such a huge part of his life hidden from her. Why hadn't he told her? Was he ashamed of her? Or was there another reason for his secrecy? Lila's mind raced with questions, and she couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled in her chest. She knew she had to confront him, but she wasn't sure how. What would she say? What if he had been hiding even more from her? She spent the next few days avoiding Dr. Hale's calls and texts, unsure of how to handle the situation. Every time her phone buzzed, her heart would race, but she would ignore it, too afraid to face him. She needed time to think, time to process everything. But deep down, she knew she couldn't avoid him forever. She had to get to the bottom of this. Finally, after a few days of sleepless nights and endless internal debates, Lila decided she couldn't go on like this. She had to talk to him. She couldn't let this uncertainty continue to cloud their relationship. She sent him a message, her fingers trembling as she typed, "Can we meet? I need to talk to you about something. He replied almost immediately, of course. I'll be at the cafe we went to last time, around 6. I'm looking forward to seeing you. Lila felt a wave of nerves wash over her. She wasn't sure what to expect, but she knew this conversation would change everything. That evening, she arrived at the cafe a little early, her heart pounding in her chest. She tried to calm herself, reminding herself that she needed to be calm and collected when she spoke to him. She couldn't let her emotions get the best of her. As the minutes ticked by, Lila's nerves only grew stronger. When Dr. Hale finally walked through the door, looking as handsome as ever, her breath caught in her throat. He smiled when he saw her, but his expression quickly changed to one of concern. "Lila," he said, walking over to her. "You look like you've been through a lot. What's going on?" She swallowed hard, feeling the weight of the moment. She had been rehearsing what she was going to say, but now that he was standing in front of her, everything felt real. I need to know why you didn't tell me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why didn't you tell me you were the CEO of that medical group? Why hide it from me?" Dr. Hale looked surprised, but then his expression softened. He sat down across from her, taking a deep breath. "Lila," he said quietly, "I never meant to keep anything from you. I just didn't want you to see me differently, or feel like you had to live up to some expectation. I've been in the medical world for so long, and I've seen how people treat you when they find out you're in a position of power. I didn't want that to happen with us." Lila felt a mix of emotions. She understood what he was saying, but at the same time, it hurt that he hadn't trusted her enough to be honest with her from the start. "But I don't care about your position," she said, her voice trembling. "I care about you. I thought we were building something real, and I don't want to be with someone who's keeping secrets from me." Dr. Hale looked at her with a deep sadness in his eyes. "I'm sorry, Lila. I should have been honest with you. I should have trusted you more. But I didn't want to lose you, and I thought that if you knew the truth, you might pull away." Lila felt her heart soften at his words, but the hurt was still there. "I understand why you did it, but that doesn't change the fact that you kept something important from me," she said. "I don't know if I can just forget about it." They sat in silence for a few moments, both of them lost in their thoughts. Lila's mind was still reeling, but she could see the sincerity in Dr. Hale's eyes. He wasn't trying to hurt her. He had been trying to protect her in his own way, but it hadn't worked. "What do we do now?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Dr. Hale took her hand in his touch gentle. "I want to make this right," he said. "I know I've messed up, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to earn back your trust." Lila looked at him, her heart torn. She wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that they could move past this, but she wasn't sure if she could. She had been hurt, and it would take time to heal. "I don't know if I'm ready for that," she said softly. "But I'm willing to try." Dr. Hale smiled at her, the warmth in his eyes making her feel just a little bit more hopeful. "That's all I can ask for," he said. "I'll be patient. Take all the time you need. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." Lila nodded, still unsure of where things would go from here, but for the first time in a while, she felt like maybe, just maybe, they had a chance. In the days that followed their heart-to-heart conversation, Lila couldn't help but feel a shift in the air between her and Dr. Hale. Things weren't exactly back to normal, but they were slowly healing. Lila had agreed to take things slow, to see if trust could be rebuilt between them. It wasn't easy, there were moments when doubt crept into her mind, when she wondered if she had made the right decision. But every time she looked into Dr. Hale's eyes, she saw the sincerity of his feelings, and that gave her the courage to keep moving forward. Dr. Hale, for his part, was patient. He understood that he had hurt her, and he wasn't going to push her. He wanted to prove to her that he was more than just a man with a powerful job and a hidden identity. He wanted to show her the man he truly was, the one who cared for her, who valued her, and who was willing to fight for their relationship. As the weeks passed, Lila found herself relaxing more and more around him. They spent time together, enjoying simple moments, dinner at a quiet restaurant, walks through the park, and late-night talks about everything and nothing. Lila felt like she was getting to know him all over again, and this time, it felt different. She wasn't just falling for the idea of him, she was falling for the real him, the man who had been vulnerable and honest with her. But despite the progress they were making, there were still moments of hesitation, moments when Lila wondered if she was truly ready to open her heart again. She had been hurt in the past, and even though she could see that Dr. Hale was trying, it was hard to forget the way she had felt when she first found out about his secret. One evening, as they were sitting on the couch in Dr. Hale's apartment, the air between them felt heavier than usual. Lila could tell he was holding something back, and it made her uneasy. "Is everything okay?" she asked, her voice soft but full of concern. He looked at her, his expression serious. "There's something I need to tell you, Lila," he said, his voice steady but with a hint of apprehension. Lila's heart raced. Was there more that he hadn't told her? "What is it?" she asked, trying to keep the anxiety from her voice. Dr. Hale took a deep breath, clearly gathering his thoughts. "I've been thinking about how to say this for a while," he said. "And I didn't want to keep anything from you. But I think it's time I tell you more about my past." Lila nodded, trying to keep calm. She could feel the weight of his words, and a part of her was scared of what was to come. "Before I became a doctor," he began, "I came from a very different place. My family didn't have much, and I worked really hard to get where I am today. There were times when I felt like I didn't belong, like I was pretending to be someone I wasn't. But over time, I learned that success isn't just about the title or the money, it's about who you become along the way." He paused, his gaze meeting hers, and Lila saw the vulnerability in his eyes. "I've made mistakes, Lila. I've been selfish, I've made choices that hurt people, and I've buried parts of myself because I didn't know how to deal with them. But being with you, spending time with you, has made me realize that I don't want to hide anymore." Lila's heart ached as she listened to him. She had always known that there was more to Dr. Hale than what he had shown her, but hearing him admit his flaws, his struggles, made her feel even closer to him. She reached out, placing her hand on his. "You don't have to hide from me, Adrian," she said softly, her voice filled with compassion. "I'm here for you. I know you've been through a lot, but I believe in you. I believe in us." Dr. Hale smiled, his eyes softening. "Thank you, Lila," he whispered, his voice full of gratitude. "You've given me the courage to face the parts of myself I've been running from for so long." Lila smiled back, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. She had never felt more connected to him than she did in that moment. As the night wore on, they sat together in comfortable silence, the weight of their conversation settling between them. It wasn't over yet, but they were making progress. For the first time in a long time, Lila felt hopeful about the future. She knew there would be challenges ahead, but she was ready to face them with Adrian by her side. As they said goodnight, Dr. Hale kissed her gently on the forehead. "I'm so glad you're in my life, Lila," he said, his voice tender. "I'll always be here for you." Lila smiled, her heart full. "And I'll always be here for you, Adrian." As she walked home that night, Lila felt a sense of peace she hadn't felt in a long time. Maybe love wasn't about finding the perfect person, maybe it was about finding someone who was willing to grow with you, who was willing to be honest and vulnerable, no matter what. And for the first time, Lila believed that maybe she had found that with Adrian. As the days went on, Lila and Adrian's connection grew stronger. The conversations became deeper, the trust between them solidified, and the fears they once held seemed to melt away. They had both learned that love was not about perfection, but about accepting each other's flaws and working together to build something meaningful. Lila had always feared that she wasn't enough for someone like Adrian, but with each passing day, she realized that what mattered was the love they shared, not their circumstances. Adrian was no longer just the successful, powerful CEO she had once seen from a distance, he was the man who was willing to open up, to share his past, and to fight for their relationship. He wasn't hiding behind his title or his wealth anymore. And Lila wasn't just the shy girl she used to be, she had learned to embrace her vulnerabilities, to trust someone with her heart, and to believe that she deserved the love she was receiving. It was a beautiful transformation for both of them. One afternoon, as they sat in the park, Lila looked at Adrian with a softness in her eyes. The world around them seemed to fade as she realized how far they had come. "You know," she said quietly, "I never imagined my life would be like this." Adrian turned to her, a smile tugging at his lips. "Like what?" he asked, his voice warm. "Like being with someone like you," she said, her voice full of emotion. "I've always felt like I wasn't enough, like I didn't belong in your world. But now, I see that it's not about that at all. It's about us, about what we have together." Adrian took her hand, his thumb brushing over her fingers. "You're more than enough, Lila. You always have been. I was just too blind to see it before. But now, I see everything clearly. I see you, and I see us, and I can't imagine my life without you in it." Lila felt a lump form in her throat as her heart swelled with love. She had spent so many years doubting herself, wondering if she would ever find someone who could love her for who she truly was. But here, in this moment, with Adrian by her side, she knew she had found exactly that. They had both come a long way, and now they were ready to face whatever the future held, together. As the evening sky began to darken, Adrian looked at her, his expression turning serious. "Lila," he began, his voice soft but full of conviction, "there's something I've been wanting to ask you for a while now." Lila's heart skipped a beat. "What is it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Adrian took a deep breath, then dropped to one knee in front of her, pulling a small box from his pocket. Lila's breath caught in her throat as he opened the box to reveal a beautiful ring. "Lila," he said, his voice steady but full of emotion, "will you marry me? Will you spend the rest of your life with me?" Tears filled Lila's eyes as she looked at the man she loved, the man who had shown her what true love was. She had never imagined this moment, but now that it was here, it felt like everything had led to this point. She didn't need to think about it, she knew the answer with all her heart. "Yes," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Yes, I will marry you." Adrian's face lit up with joy as he slipped the ring onto her finger. They stood there, in the park, surrounded by the fading light of the day, holding each other close as the world seemed to fade away. It was a moment of pure happiness, a moment that marked the beginning of the rest of their lives. In the months that followed, Lila and Adrian continued to grow together, building a life that was founded on love, trust, and mutual respect. Their relationship wasn't without its challenges, but they faced them together, hand in hand, knowing that no matter what came their way, they would always have each other. Their wedding day was a beautiful celebration of their journey, surrounded by friends and family who had supported them along the way. As they exchanged vows, Lila couldn't help but think back to the shy, uncertain girl she had once been. She had come so far, and so had Adrian. Together, they had found something beautiful, something that was worth fighting for. And as they sealed their vows with a kiss, Lila knew, without a doubt, that their love story was just beginning.